mean, UVALDE Mom covers so many topics that I think could make for very interesting conversations and a very interesting teaching tool in the classroom. I mean, there's first the uncovering of the history of Mexican Americans in the town of Uvalde and the power structure, which is that Uvalde has always been predominantly Latino, like over 80, 90% Latino, yet it's ruled by primarily conservative white people. And it will be really interesting to unpack that in a classroom and see how the quality of life of Mexican American people in Uvalde hasn't really changed much throughout the decades and how that was reflective to the response of law enforcement the day of the shooting. So it's a great illustration, again, of systems that are there meant to serve and protect those that are most vulnerable and what happens when that's not the case. I think also the story of Angeli as this young, promising straight A student, successful athlete in high school who takes a wrong turn and ends up in the criminal justice system, and then how so many young people, it's like once they're initiated in the system, then there is almost like no way out, right? And you get to witness how the harassment, the hypervigilance towards her behaviors or actions, threatens her and threatens her freedom. And I think that's something that's very relatable for many young people today in the US, particularly people of color, whether you're in an urban area or whether you're in an inner city, and that speaks to the criminal justice systems and trying to keep stay populated. And it also, speaks of motherhood, and it speaks of a single mom who goes to any length to provide for her children, but then also to save them the day of the shooting, and then to continue to speak up. Angeli always acknowledges that she was lucky to be able to walk out of the school with her kids, but many parents didn't. And so she also speaks up for those parents and those children that didn't make it, and the parents that are grieving, and the community that are grieving. So I think it's a really interesting study into that as well. And obviously also on issues of gun control and politics and how you will think a tragedy like this will have everyone on the same page about gun control and access to especially, assault weapons, and how this actually ends up dividing a town. It's a really interesting sociological study of how politics work in conservative states. Uvalde Mom goes beyond the headlines, goes beyond the shooting. It dives into the history of Uvalde. It dives into the historical systemic racism that impacts this town and how it plays out throughout the history. And that is something that most media outlets didn't cover or didn't understand about Uvalde. And those are all like layers that in reports, and I think actually the media did a fantastic job in covering the shooting, but this film goes beyond that. It goes into layers of how the town got there, and then also what happens to a town a year later.